This coronavirus that we're talking about now is dubbed 2019 nCoV, which is the year, it's discovery of the year for the virus. And
so that's a big thing
novel.
too, is that this isn't like a brand new thing. Coronavirus has existed already.
Yeah, so coronaviruses have been out, actually.
Oh, really? Okay, wow, I did not know that.
In fact, they're pretty ubiquitous in that there's been a lot of them all over the place. A lot of times, though, the difference is this coronavirus actually is like two that you probably have heard about in the past. There was SARS back in I think the early 2000s.
2003, I believe it was.
So that was
outbreak.
I think severe acute respiratory distress or syndrome.
Okay. Severe acute respiratory syndrome. Yep.
Syndrome, and then there was MERS. These were both B-type coronaviruses.
Middle East respiratory syndrome.
Right, exactly. Thank you. Joe's on.
Point this time. I'm trying to listen.
Like a real play-by-play man over here. I like it. So
that's
mortality and morbidity is something obviously that's important about a virus. So if we can go back, actually, let's backtrack for a minute.
Okay.
And just talk about what viruses are. Ostensibly, viruses are ubiquitous in the world, right? They're everywhere. They're on us. And the reason why people get sick most of the time is viral related, not bacteria as much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the reasons is because there's so much. But to put it in context how small viruses are, when the particle of a virus, before it actually even gets into you or it gets into a host, whether that's a camel or a cat or
a monkey
a human being or whatever it is,
Bats.
a human reservoir, or right, in this case, actually, that has a lot to do with some of the viruses, the coronavirus in particular.
It's bats. Well, they don't know the origin, but I think they think it's bats.
But they think it's the guano from the bat,
Interesting.
Guano.
In open food markets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
What's
that's one
guano?
of the...
What's guano?
Bat poo.
Bat poop.
Bat poop.
All right.
For all our Ace Ventura fans out there. Anyway, yeah.
All right. Did we get a giggle out there? So viruses are, like I said, they're everywhere, and they're extremely, extremely small. Like, think of one bacterium. When a virus enters a human being, it's about 1/100th the size of one bacterium.
Really?
So it's like,
But
in fact, a virus can infect a bacteria.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So that's what a lot of people,
That's
when you see
interesting.
the common cold, the rhinovirus, the colds are virus.
Right.
Right. So that's one thing to know. They're super common, right? It's everywhere.
Yeah, sure.
There's so many different types. Two, they are living. But another important aspect to that is they need a host. Viruses cannot live on their own.
I see. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Whereas bacteria can, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
They can be self-sustaining.
Okay.
So they're, I guess you would call it parasitic.
Yeah, sure.
Because they need a host to live.
Right. Okay.
There's no cures
sort
for
of like
viruses.
Our podcast needs a host to live.
Yes, we
Right.
do. We in our case, we need 3 hosts.
Yeah,
to
right.
live.
Without 3 hosts.
So we're a
done.
really bad virus.
Yeah, very,
Yes.
very bad.
About the-
I hope we grow, though. I hope we just keep
Related
infecting.
virus.
Hope we keep
90%
infecting
mortality rate.
90% of the population quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no cure for a virus. I know that's like, I don't think it's controversial, but people think it's controversial. The best way to avoid a virus is to get vaccinated if there is a vaccine.
Okay.
Now, there are antiviral drugs, but they don't kill viruses. All they can do is kind of contain
Prevent it or
them
sort of, like,
or
prevent it from-
reduce the proliferation or the amount that the virus is spreading.
Okay.
Okay.
And they can also reduce the amount of shedding. That's really important.
Shedding?
So let's take, so viruses shed or off of their hosts, usually humans. And that's often why we get the flu so easily, because particularly kids who have poor hygiene habits, they shed a lot.
Really?
So that's how many, just think of it as copies. Like,
When you're saying shed, you mean like
You're
like
spreading?
skin cells?
they're
or
shedding
like
the viral cells.
Oh,
The
wow.
viral cells.
Really?
Right. And
Oh my
so
God.
it's coming in their sputum, like right how we're talking to each other right, now.
Sure,
This would be a perfect way
Yeah.
to catch the flu if one
Really?
of us had it, because we're in
Yeah.
close proximity.
And it's airborne. It's an airborne thing, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To a degree. So most of it is droplet. So
Okay.
it's the bigger. It is airborne technically, but they're the droplets from the respiratory tract of the nasopharyngeal areas, that area
Well,
like
even
where
just
the throat and the nose meets.
Like one saliva, like one just if it gets into your mouth, whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So saying how small it is and how prevalent it is. Listen, if you were sleeping fine before this episode, continue to sleep fine.
Yeah,
I'm not saying sleep in fear. Oh my God, it's everywhere.
Yeah, we definitely. don't
But
do
you
that.
should have a what's the word I'm looking for? A natural
Awareness,
respect or
yeah.
an awareness
Yeah.
for how small something is and how not trivial it is, right?
Right.
For everybody, but for me, I just see what I've seen on these popular television shows like Oz from HBO back in the day. The Wire. Tell us, how much do you feel like that was a reality at Rikers?
It's exaggerated. Most
okay.
stuff is exaggerated on TV. Even like stuff that's pretty close. Like sometimes they'll show stuff in Law and Order where they're going, and it's sort of. Yeah,
so some truth, but then they're just embellishing it.
Yeah.
How about as far as like gangs and stuff? That's a reality.
That's what I was going to ask.
Gangs always in criminal is always going to be there.
Right.
Was that like? Would you say that the vast majority of the violence was gang related, or would you like?
At certain periods of time, yeah. In the 90s, we started having like the Latin Kings and yet as well all Latin gangs, which were really huge.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I remember.
We started having problems. Then you got then in 2000 the El Salvadorians who had gangs. You had the Bloods and the Crips.
Right.
Oh, you had all that. Man.
Yeah.
They must pass through. I mean,
They weren't real.
in those areas,
They were just as bad as, but they weren't like real Bloods and Crips like L.A. Bloods.
Right. Yeah, that's what they originated. Yeah.
Offshoot blood.
Right.
But I'm sure
Well,
it
became a state by state thing. Like it was like a club. You went. They had the Bloods and the Crips and everything.
Yeah, they had factions and
all over the country.
So, has anyone ever seen this is a common like show trope, and I could see how it could be reality. So somebody would go into jail, wouldn't necessarily be like an everyday person, couldn't really protect themselves, and then somebody will offer protection if they do something for them. How about that kind of
thing? That happens. There's always pay for for I'm going to do something for you.
Okay.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. So
the only myth I want to exclude right now is they always over dramatize movies, and it does happen, but it doesn't happen. Like getting sexually assaulted.
That was my next question.
99% of the sexual contact between inmates is consensual.
Wow.
There's only 1% something, and there's things have happened.
So like the scene that everybody knows from like Shawshank, that kind of thing doesn't happen.
No,
it doesn't happen
as often as they make it.
It does happen, but it's not like people think as soon as you go in there, they're going to push you down on the floor.
Gonna throw the soap on the
floor. Right,
yes,
exactly, yeah. Wow, okay, that's pretty crazy.
What were your concerns? Did you guys have training? You said earlier that you had been like cut and, right, what, can you say that again? What happened to you, Ray, with violence?
The time I got cut was
injuries?
during a riot at the feeding with the adolescents. The kids were fighting with the state parole violators, and I know there was one kid that didn't like me, and just the arm came out of the crowd while we were fighting and cut my arm open.
Okay. So the thing, so it's not just the initial reality that you've just been harmed, but you're a healthcare professional now, right? So you know this as well as anyone else. But during the 80s, 90s, weren't you concerned with like bloodborne pathogens, HIV, hepatitis?
You know what? I didn't get it, and I was covered in people's blood. Quite often.
That's what I was going to ask.
Did they treat you?
No.
Well, back then it probably wasn't as widely known. You didn't think about it.
Because that's got to be going rampant, right?
Well, HIV was big. But if you were, even if you're halfway intelligent, if you had some intelligence, you knew that you weren't catching it like that.
Right.
Okay. HIV. You can cover it. Like I said, you're not. Because there was times when we're covered in blood, and the guy was telling him, I'm HIV positive, he's Hep C positive.
Oh, they would say that?
Yeah, they would tell you.
No
wow.
kidding. Wow. What about like people throwing like I know
feces.
Obviously
that's what I've heard. I've heard that as well.
Of course we want to know. I'm sure
they had a big problem with it in the 80s, 90s, and then the state made it a felony to do it.
Oh wow!
And they were arresting people because we progressed too. They had a gang intelligence unit and a arrest unit on Rikers Island, and they would arrest them. But that used to be common.
That's interesting.
So wait, explain that to us real quick, because that is interesting, Joe.
Yeah.
Ray, you're saying that they would have like police units, kind of like
they would have the officers trained as arresting procedures to arrest the gang member for gang stuff and for assaults on island.
Okay,
that's unbelievable.
Because they used to nothing would happen. They would just assault. They get beat down. You get injured, and that would be the end of it. There was nothing else happened. Didn't deter anything.
Okay. It's unbelievable. I just to go back to the feces throwing part of it. I had a friend in the Army who actually served he spent some time at Guantanamo Bay down there. He was stationed down there, and he was an officer, a corrections officer. He was on patrol, and he said one of the things the prisoners would always do down there, a lot of them are not obviously, they throw piss and shit all the time. He said he would have to come. He said he would go in. He would have to change his uniform multiple times during the same shift. He was just covered in piss.
That's crazy.
In certain areas, because we had in the 90s they built a central punitive segregation unit, which was a whole jail for people who couldn't behave in jail, and they were locked down. And they would just wear those big heavy rain. The officers would just wear big heavy rain stuff.
Oh my God! So
until they started locking them up,
that big of a
it was a big issue. Yeah,
wow, that's insane.
That is insane.
Dick Wolf and got to know. So I worked 16-hour days. And got like $80 or something like that, and it was, you were there all night and you were doing, overtime was taken by taxes, and you're like, what? How do I make 11? No, it's not. It wasn't.
So you had to make some big sacrifices in the beginning.
Huge sacrifices. Sacrifices. You had to go into your savings and that whole thing because you weren't making ends meet.
Right.
And so, worked on. Then I had an opportunity to work for a commercial house, and there I learned everything about production,
right.
Cameras and what producers and line producers and coordinators and what is a director and all of those things that I wanted to do. And we did it on stage, right? Because I did it on the tabletop world. When you look at the Pizza Hut and you see that 3 seconds of like, damn, I'm hungry, and you see it, So we were in charge of that, for McDonald's and Pizza Hut and Wendy's and you name it, we did it. Wow. Cereals, like you had glue for milk, is amazing, and that's why I love it. So from there, then I worked as from a PA to a production coordinator, worked on other people's projects. Then I had an opportunity to go to Kuwait. I knew a director out there, and so we went out there, and then I was in charge of over 200 people. Wow. And I had to get extras and what the music was going to be like and art direction and that whole thing, and I had to put all of this thing together. And I was showing people how to put things together, how to do this out there, and so they asked me back, and so it was something else, another big project that we had to do. It was like for Verizon out there, and there was like 500 people that that I was in charge of.
Wow, really?
And put all of these people together with my director, those projects were fun, and I had to obviously number crunch and made sure that it fit the budget and a variety of things. But so going this job actually took me to places around the world, and so from that, then I started my company. I started my company in 2003, yeah. And so from that, I worked with a variety of directors and did commercials.
Right.
And so I'm actually, literally working on producing my first feature.
Really?
Yeah. So from that. But it's not easy to create a film, right? We only to finance it, to find the right story, and make sure that it makes sense, and you have a target audience. You have to think. What I do is the way I think of film is to think of it backwards. What's the end result? Who's actually going to watch this? And then start thinking backwards from there. What is the post-production going to be? What's the production going to be? And then what's the concept? All of those things. What does the trailer look like? Right,
exactly.
Right.
Because that's the biggest thing is prep work.
Right,
if
exactly.
you can do that, you're already setting yourself up to be good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so it's not easy. And now everybody with an iPhone thinks that they're a director, right? So it's
yeah.
Right. Talk about everything being shot on iPhones nowadays, and
it's pretty
wild. So what's going to separate the people that do iPhone movies from everybody else is the quality of and the stories, right? It's your story that's going to carry and hold people engaged in their story. So
I also not to interrupt, but I hear a lot of, like, I know, like, when I actually did a development internship, which was basically kind of like we take the stuff from when we get the scripts and we do the coverage and the treatments.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of stories about, they call it development hell, where it's just, the producers they see the first draft and they bring it back to the writer, and it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth. And then it turns out like maybe 3 years it's been stuck in pre-production. Do you have any experience with that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to work for a guy named Edward Pressman, and he was one of the top producers in Hollywood, and I used to do coverages for him. And so what you would do is they would send me scripts, and I would then break it down from what are the characters, the arc, does it make sense, do I recommend this? And I had to try to find stories, because these producers are looking for great stories, and you got to make sure that the structure is fine, and the characters and the dialogue and that whole thing. And so I did that for
like you go to like different places, and they're telling you, like, we went to one year. You get these warranties from the place. Another ripoff.
Yeah, all the warranties. Yeah.
All right, so you have a car, and like I have Hyundais, and they give you that 10 billion, 100 million mile, bumper to bumper warranty thing. It doesn't cover a lot of stuff, though. Believe it or not, it sounds like it does, but it doesn't. And I had extended warranties on things, and I think my wife's car, I have a 2015 Hyundai Elantra, with power windows and all, and the windows the windows started not working, and then the seat started not working.
The seat wasn't working.
Well, what happened is my wife drives that car, and when you would recline the seat, the button, it was breaking where it wouldn't come back up. So it got to the point where there was no back to the seat. You had to sit up like this, but no back.
But the best part was you could make it go back,
but you couldn't come back up.
So eventually it was just completely flat.
You'd have to play with the button, and then it would catch and come back up. But eventually other people didn't know, so they get in the car and they'd readjust it back again.
And then it just kept going farther and
further back.
Until you're laying 180 degrees trying to drive with your feet.
So I called up the dealership about it. Of course, it wasn't covered under warranty, and we would just pass the warranty on that car. So I said, all right, how much, I need to fix the switch or whatever. And they gave me some ridiculous price. I don't even remember what it was, $300 or $500 for this.
Yeah.
Or you could trade it in for 5 cents, and we'll get you into a new car for the sweet monthly deal.
Seriously.
Yeah.
But I YouTube.
It's like the whole thing is like, your seat's broken? Got to get a new car. I would just get a whole new car altogether.
That's
buy a whole new car.
It's not worth it. You throw this climb out.
That's what they always say. Like with computers, it's like, you need a new part? No, just get a whole new computer because it's just going to take so much money to replace it.
Yeah, it's crazy the way they build the cars. They rip you off. God, I could talk forever about the kind of rip-offs that they have in these cars. Just on the Hyundai Elantra alone.
Didn't you? Wait, so what was the problem?
I fixed it myself.
That's right, yeah.
They wanted to charge me, I don't remember what it was. It was over $300 or more.
Yeah.
I think I had to replace the entire electrical component for the switches.
Yeah.
There was only one switch on the component that didn't work, not the whole thing.
Right.
And I said, well, what is that? Well, I have to bring it. I got to take the old computer board out, put a new one in. So I said, all right, let me take a look at that myself. So I went under the seat and I found out how to take it off. I took the little unit off. I took it apart and really carefully took it apart. And inside the unit, where the switches are, there's just a little contacts on all the switches.
Yeah.
And it's a toggle. It goes up and down.
Yeah.
And then there's a little ball bearing that sits in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That ball bearing was out of place. That's all it was. I took the ball bearing, I put it back into the middle of the toggle switch, closed it all up again, and it worked.
And it works. It was a centimeter off of place.
Didn't cost me a dime. These people wanted to take. This is why I don't trust mechanics.
Yeah.
Because if they don't know enough,
certain mechanics,
and you know that they do know it, because what they're going to do is they're going to take that unit.
Yeah.
They're probably either just going to fix that and then charge you $300 for it, or they're going to take the unit out, replace the whole unit.
They're not even a bother component.
No, but then they'll fix that unit because it's a simple fix, and they'll resell it to the next schmuck that comes down.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I mean,
like,
don't you think some places are probably more transparent than others? I think.
Yeah.
I
well, like
don't.
You said,
but in general,
you said, like you go to like a private guy, like that YouTube video done. Like you have that one guy you used to go to where you would buy tires from and stuff like that. Like these are guys that are, it's like.
Oh yeah, you can trust those
regular guys, like a regular guy. You know, when it comes to like maybe some of these like bigger, more like chains, almost like a chain restaurant, but like a chain, you know, like a Jiffy Lube, or a Midas, or a Blightus, as they call them. Blightus, Blavis, Blizzcount, Bliers.
Yeah.
Jimmy's Tube.
These guys, you know, they can, again, it comes to tires, the same thing. You don't know. They tell you, oh, yeah, these are good, best tires ever. You should know what you want before you go and buy it.
You got to get good winter tires, but I live in L.A. Yeah, but you never know when it's going to snow in L.A. You got to get
it's like buying anything else.
You did encourage me to do stuff. I was able to fix my washer by myself.
Yeah.
I was able to take the whole part out, replace the electronic components I needed, reset it.
And even most of these
I think on Amazon I paid like $9, and that job would have cost me a couple $100.
And the thing too, like again, you asked me before, what would I do if I come across a problem I'm not really sure what it is? I use YouTube because you could type up on or Google it and say, okay, I'm having this problem, whatever, and it's my car's making this noise or that noise, or it's doing this or that.
Sure.
It will pull up a blog site or
Reddit.
You know,
a channel,
Reddit,
a whole channel dedicated to that one thing, probably.
Yeah, or a whole YouTube video. I'll tell you.
So the investigation began in March of 2014, right? And basically, it was just like Brazilian officials. It all started as they were just conducting an investigation into just a small money laundering scheme. It was like some kind of
mom and pop shop.
Yeah. Well, you know what it was. It was just a small little like sort of sketchy car wash, a car wash business that was there. And essentially, what wound up happening, it was a bunch of just black market money launderers were just caught, and they were investigating them or whatever. And then what blew this up is it found out one of the people that they essentially interrogated sort of like broke under interrogations, and he revealed that this basically all of these black market money dealers were actually using this gas station to launder money, or car wash, I'm sorry, We're using this car wash to launder money on behalf of executives at Petrobras, which was Brazil's, basically the biggest corporation in Brazil.
Yeah.
The biggest corporation in Brazil.
Right.
And of course, they're like, oh my God. And it was, and I'm talking like, it was a small thing, but it
was a little bit of a string that
got pulled on, and it just
unraveled the entire blanket.
So, of course, the guy that they immediately go, and this executive was a man by the name of Paulo Roberto Costa. He was arrested, and literally almost immediately after being arrested, confessed to everything. And he was like one of the highest people in this whole scandal, this whole scheme. And he confessed, and it just was like people were dumbfounded by this whole thing.
You're saying the Brazilian police were investigating?
Yeah,
this?
no, it was like like imagine if somebody was just investigating like a local restaurant, and they were like, oh, we caught you guys money laundering.
But it was the Brazilian authorities, right?
It was Brazilian police. No, it was Brazilian
like an
police.
International authority that was looking into it. It was actually an internal thing.
Yeah,
because the thing that's
Brazilian
about
police. Just
Brazilian police.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, just it was like a standard police investigation.
The intriguing thing is that
it's
like you said, it's a state-run oil corporation that's doing it, and yet the state.
You're investigating yourself at that point.
Basically,
but it was local. It was literally. Let me put it to you this way.
It's amazing that they didn't get rubbed out or paid off themselves or something. How that
we'll get to that. Don't say it's a good thing they didn't, because a lot of people did. The whole point was that it was a bunch of. Imagine a local cop finds out that a restaurant in your area is laundering money, and then you go and like the town police goes and investigates, and they get some detectives there, and then it turns out that one of the chefs in the back say to you, that we're not just laundering money, we're doing it on behalf of these guys at Google, and you're like,
what?
What?
What's the connection there?
I'm a town police officer. I'm
Google
a town.
What?
Google Google like the gas station up the street, like Google, like the company Google, and it's like I'm a town of Newburgh cop. I can't handle this. This is just too much. This is insane. That's what this was honestly like. So this guy went ahead and he essentially explained. He was arrested, this executive, and he confessed that he and several other Petrobras directors, executive directors, had been basically for decades, for almost one decade, had been overpaying various high-profile companies in Brazil, and not even just Brazil, on contracts that related mostly to construction as well as like other operations too, whatever.
Sure.
Right? But the reason why they were doing this is basically like, so the so the guy Costa went on to explain that the reason they were doing this was that these contractors that they were making these deals with had basically formed an agreement with these executives at Petrobras that essentially guaranteed these contractors ridiculously favorable terms. Like they were getting like, oh, we're going to give you like insane amounts of money, way more than what this construction, is going to actually cost. We're going to pay you way above and beyond. We're going to give you returns on the investment. That's just ridiculous. But what we're going to do is that we'll do that for you if you agree that all the payments that we're going to give you for these contracts, you're going to go ahead and skim like maybe 1 to 5% off the top of it, and you're going to take that money and you're going to stash that money into these secret, what they call slush funds that we own and we control and we operate. And these contractors are all like, yeah, we'll do that. It's like, well, I'm skimming 1% off of something that I'm getting an additional $30 million on. Yeah, I'll do that for you. So they were doing this, and this is how they sort of coordinated this. And they were essentially, basically, that investigators discovered that through the use of these like slush funds, they were called, which is like, because like they were only like temporary, right?
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised they don't have a documentary on this or something.
I'm sure that it's in the works. Yeah. I'm sure that it's still ongoing. Like, there's still more every day. Yeah. So this all, like, the investigation really kind of started in 2017. That's when it all kind of blew up. Yeah. The scandal itself started in the investigation started in 2014, but it really started like hitting like the waves in 2017.
Right.
But anyway, so they discovered that through the use of these like slush funds, that a lot of Petrobras' directors were funneling billions of dollars to benefactors all over Brazil. Politicians, top executives of companies, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists in other countries. They were bribing officials in countries that they were operating that were also known to be, not to have some shady business dealings.
Probably comes back to our own country and some of, I'm sure it does.
And it was literally billions of dollars. So basically, they found out that the vast majority of these funds were used to essentially bribe government, officials.
Yeah.
They did this through, like campaign contributions. They even were known to deposit money in Swiss bank accounts and then just like straight up offer officials, oh, you want access to the Swiss bank account? It's completely untraceable and no one can ever have access to it and no one's ever going to know anything. And these were all just bribes. So but it wasn't even just like money. It was discovered later on that there were some officials, high-ranking officials in Brazilian government who were known to take bribes in the form of luxury cars, expensive pieces of art, Rolex watches, $3,000 bottles of wine, yachts, and freaking helicopters. Okay, wow. It was just out of control that they were doing all of this stuff, and I mean, like, it went as high as senators in Brazil, and then eventually like former presidents.
Oh my
we'll get to
gosh.
that.
Yeah, so, I know you mentioned something about presidents.
Yeah, so basically, they were so desperate to, and it's crazy because like what they were able to get away with, like, it sounds all like very well coordinated, right? Well, there was times where they were just trying to get money to somebody quickly because like the big thing was they wanted to bribe government officials. So I guess because this was a government-run oil company, one of the big things is that if you're a president in Brazil, if you're a senator, what you do is you fill the executive director seats on this company with people that align with your political party.
Well, of course.
They can go ahead and then they'll purposely go ahead and skim off the top and they will donate money to your campaign, to your political party's campaign, and basically keeps you in office, right? It keeps the Congress in your favor, right? Well, sometimes you got to do it quickly. They were known to, in certain cases, to avoid creating a paper trail, executives were known to use elderly like money mules, essentially, who would fly from city to city with shrink-wrapped bags of cash literally strapped to their bodies.